preparing to go live stream. So Zoom to YouTube is setting up. Oh my goodness. I'm a little excited. And the internet is working on it. Please tell me I'm on the right internet and I'm not on the slow one. Of course I'm on the slow internet.
You are live.
I am live. Beautiful. So you're on the YouTube as well?
Yep, I can see it warns us when you go live. We can't do anything, but it lets us know that you're broadcasting.
That we're live. Beautiful. So we are live. Beautiful. Gorgeous. It might just not let me see it at the same time, but it says we're live, correct?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Welcome to Breaking Expectations. Oh, gorgeous.
Hello, this is Gabrielle Thibault-Messier with Breaking Expectations, a podcast about the joys of disability and
It
all
might
that it
just
includes.
not let me see it at the same
Here
time,
you'll
but
hear
it says we're
stories
live,
and
correct?
round tables of individuals
Alrighty.
who've gone through different journeys in their lives
Welcome
than you
to
think
Breaking
you'll take.
Expectations.
But the twist of it is that if you're lucky enough, you'll take this journey too.
Oh, gorgeous.
Hello, this
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for a great conversation that we're going to have around a topic that faces persons with disabilities, told by the voices of persons with disabilities, and in a context that centers their narratives and their lived experience. My name is Ingrid Palmer. I am a social activist, a public speaker, and a person with a disability myself. I'd like to start off by getting to know our panelists. And so we're going to have everyone introduce themselves one at a time. I'd like you to tell us a little bit about yourself, what your mobility device is, and just for fun, if your device has a name. So let's start off with Stevia.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stavia. I'm a newcomer to Canada, but working in social services and sometimes some personal support worker. I use form crutches right now. I know they do not have a name.
Thank you so much, Stevia. You never know. Why don't we, we'll turn to Kate. Kate, can we get to know a little bit about you and your mobility device?
Hi, my name is Kate. I'm a disability activist here in Toronto, Ontario. I am also an artist and I make art around disability. I use a walker and my walker does have a name. My walker's name is Pantalaimon. It's a character in a book.
Very nice, Pantalaimon.
Yeah.
Not so crazy after all.
No.
And, but certainly not least, Adam.
I'm Adam Cahoon. I'm an artist with a disability. I go by the handle ARC23 on the internet, and sometimes my wheelchair, I call it Wheels 970 in some cases, but on a day-to-day basis, no, it doesn't have a name.
Only when the mood or the situation suits. That's good. Well, we're going to talk today about our mobility devices and how they impact our lives. And so I'd like to start off with Adam. Adam, can you tell us about your mobility device and how it has impacted your life and what it has taught you?
My mobility device, it the way I've used it over time has changed. Since about age 6, I've used my power wheelchair most of the time. Until age 6, my mobility device was mostly used outdoors, and for the first month that I had it, I could only drive around in circles. But that was because I was 3 years old. And the other thing to know is because my dad is a mechanic, and he is also a simple electronics technician. Most times they would not give a 3-year-old kid a power wheelchair, but my dad then made sure that it could only go to a certain speed, and he said to the people, he said, if a 3-year-old can break his wheelchair more than I can fix it, then Adam won't use one till he's older. But my dad figured that I should sort of use it sort of like how little kids use a tricycle or stuff. It would give me some freedom to play outside and get the fresh air.
That's interesting. So you've had your mobility device from a very young age, and that's not the same for everyone. Stevia, when did you start needing your mobility device?
Well, I've needed it for quite some time, but just refused to use it up until last year. I've always had chronic pain, and they helped me to manage, take some of the pressure off of my back, and I've been avoiding using them for a long time because I'm always that try to be independent person, I got this. But then as pain became a whole lot worse after I moved here because it's kind of colder. Well, not kind of colder, it's a lot colder. It worsened the pain, and I moved to being unable sometimes to control my muscles when I'm walking. So I had to get them to stop falling. So I've really been using them since last year. Yeah.
So Adam you both brought up two really good points. Adam brought up that his mobility device brought him freedom, and you brought up that your mobility device helped to ease some of your pain. I wonder, Kate, if you had another aspect that you could bring up that possibly your mobility device helped you in your life.
Yeah, so I've been using a walker for 6 or 7 years now. Before that, I was using a cane, but I've had chronic illness and disability since I was very young. And my walker actually helps me feel like I want to go out in the world. I think for a long time I isolated myself because I was scared of falling, and I was scared of going out in the world if I would like hurt my body. And now having a mobility device has really, I agree, like given me a lot of freedom. It also just like psychologically makes me so that I can participate in the world. Otherwise I would just be at home sitting on the couch all the time, but or not even moving out of my bed. But yeah, having a walker makes me mobile. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to move around.
I like what you said, Kate, about your mobility device helping you to participate in the world. Can you expand a bit about that and maybe what that has taught you about yourself and maybe mobility devices in general?
Yeah, I feel like a lot, like once I reframed that in my mind, I looked at my mobility device as like a really positive thing because it helps me like go out and about in the world. It helps me with groceries. It helps me just walk, right? But it also helps me like go have coffee with friends, and it helps me do all of the different things that I want to do in order to feel fulfilled in my life.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Adam, when you spoke about your mobility device and having it from the age of 3 and the freedom that it brought you, you have been with your mode of mobility device for a long time, and I imagine that you have learned a lot about yourself in this time. Can you tell us a bit about maybe one or two aspects of things that you have learned about yourself or from your mobility device?
Well, the two things that I noticed is I consider myself a bit of a road warrior, and sometimes I use my mobility device a lot like some downtown Torontonians use their bike, in that sometimes in the good weather, I will actually use my mobility device to drive across downtown to events or other things rather than taking my wheelchair. The other thing I've learned about my device is that when we are talking about pronouns, one of the things that I get is there are people that will see the chair and won't see me and will actually refer to the chair as it. And so they'll say, oh, it's in the way, or it needs help, rather than Adam needs help, or he needs help, or they need help. They will refer to the chair as it.
And by the chair, since it's an extension of yourself, they're also referring to you as
Yes.
it. Stevia, do you have anything to add to that perspective? Have you experienced anything like that, or is there a point that you would like to bring up?
Well, I've had the experience of people seeing you crutches and not seeing you. So I get that, but I'm very sure that Adam's experience might be a little bit more that might happen a little bit more often. Because with crutches, I feel it feels more for me like people insisting on trying to help where no help is needed, rather than seeing crutches and excluding me completely. Yeah.
Right.
That's more my experience.
So with your mobility device, it's seen as separate from yourself in a way that's different than how Adam's mobility device is seen.
Yeah, it's
So
like
no one is
automatically.
referring to you as it because you're
Right.
using crutches. They definitely see that as separate.
There's this automatic assumption that there are crutches, therefore help is needed. That's more it than separating, I guess, me from the crutches.
Yes, but always assuming that if you have your
Yeah.
mobility device, then you're in need of constant assistance from someone else.
Yes.
Okay. Kate, did you have anything that you'd like to contribute to this aspect of the discussion in terms of
Sure.
not being separated from your mobility device, whether that's a pro or a con?
Yeah, so I feel like mine is a little bit in between. Like I definitely get the same with Stevia, that people are constantly trying to help me, and sometimes actually like it's worse. They make it worse by trying to help, right? Like they'll try to open a door, but I have my own way of opening a door, and they throw me off balance even more. But I was just what Adam was saying. One thing that I'm really aware of is, for example, when I go to the movie theater or a play or something like that, People want to take my my walker away so that it's not in the way. But for me, my walker is like it feels like part of me. And so when they take it away, it feels like they're taking away part of how I get around. It's like if they take away my legs or something.
Mm-mm.
And so like in a movie theater or play or something, like I always try to have like someone with me so that like they can go get my walker for me in case, or I try to sit in a seat where they don't need to take away my walker. But yeah, it's really hard when people insist of like taking it away once I'm like sitting or something like that. But I also get people wanting to like extra help me with like bagging my groceries or opening a door or doing other things that I don't need help with.
Yeah, I think that we can all relate to that. With my use of a white cane, I definitely see my cane as an extension of myself and a part of my body. Um, how do you, and I'll just throw this out to any one of you who want to answer, um, but I'd like to just hear more about what your mobility aid has brought to you and how um, it has enhanced your life and maybe your independence. If anybody wants to speak to any aspect like that.
I can tell another story. It's Kate here. So when I first started using a walker, I was going to physiotherapy, and they were trying to. My condition can't really be cured or anything like that, but they were trying to make it so that I wouldn't have to use a walker. But that just made me frustrated and made me not want to go back. So I actually found like having a walker is really liberating because it means that I can like focus on the things that I want to focus on in my life instead of focusing on the things like quote unquote fitting into society because I am not using a walker. And so having a walker is like actually really liberating. It's kind of made me identify with disability even more, even though I've had a disability my whole life. I've tried to hide it, and now having a walker, like I don't try to hide it, and it actually like it feels like it gives me some freedom because I'm not trying to hide it and I don't have that shame anymore.
Right, it was kind of like a forced acceptance of who
Yeah,
you
yeah,
are.
exactly.
Stevie or Adam, do you have anything you'd like to add or weigh in?
Um, the only thing that I would like is the one thing was around the time I got my wheelchair, my dad sold his dune buggy, and and my mom sort of jokingly said, "Oh, he sold his dune buggy because is to sort of because I would never be able to ride around in it because I had my wheelchair, and and when my brother was born, of course he likes the and he's like, Dad, why did you sell the dune buggy? Oh, well, because Adam was never gonna ride around in it with me, and it sort of gave us, because they had to pay for some of my wheelchair. The government paid for most of it, but my brother was always like, uh, um, oh, I wish we kept it. We kept the dune buggy. Um, the other thing was when I was a kid, my, some of the kids used to bother me and say to me, Adam, you can't do sports and stuff. And I remember one time telling them that actually on the weekend that I was actually in a wheelchair racing league. Like they went out to play hockey on Saturday or Sunday morning. That, yeah, no, I went and traveled around Ontario racing my wheelchair. And it was a bit of a lie, but the kids believed it. They're like, cool. Adam's like a junior NASCAR driver. And it also helped to explain why I had so many stickers on my wheelchair, which I used to have like a lot of stickers that my dad would just give me when he went to the gas station. And so I had all these, so my chair in some ways did look like a little NASCAR car.
That's a great story. That's a great story. And Stevia, did you have anything you wanted to weigh in on about?
Well, on having mobility aids and feeling liberated. As I said, I refused to get them for a number of years, but after getting them, I realized how much easier getting around can really be. Um, I'm usually one who tries to stay a bit fit, I guess, moving around as much as possible, but the pain of it makes it a little bit more difficult. So I found that over the years, even walking got a little slower and stuff. And now on my crutches, I feel like I'm walking with people and they're like, hey, hold up, wait.
If only you'd known.
So
That so resonates.
So I get like this double where I can pick up as much ground as I can cover now and get a slight workout while doing it too. So I mean that has brought me some joy.
That's great. So you're keeping fit.
Yeah, ish.
Killing two birds with one stone. Yeah, that's great. I totally resonate with what you're saying. Knowing that I was recommended to use a white cane as a teenager, and I utterly refused. No way. And I didn't begin until my mid to late 30s when I had to, when my vision had deteriorated to the point where I had to. So I think many people can resonate with the fact of not wanting to use a a mobility aid, thinking that it's taking away something, and then realizing that, oh, it's actually giving back something, or in giving us more freedom than we thought, or enabling us in a way. And so when the greater society looks at persons with disabilities and sees a deficit, um, we know that it isn't a deficit. If there was something that you could say um, to the greater society about mobility aids and what they do, or I think either Kate or Adam had brought up, actually, I think we all did, about people automatically assuming that we need assistance. What is something that you would want to let the greater public know around disability and the use of mobility aids? I'm throwing that out to anyone.
The first thing I want to say is, even though power wheelchairs have handles, we don't want to be pushed unless we need to be pushed. Sometimes pushing a power chair when it's moving, it can be very jarring for me, and sometimes it can even throw me off course and push me into other people. So that's the final thing I'd like to say. That is one of the hazards of using mobility aids out in public, is people want to try and push you when you don't necessarily need to be pushed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or just touching the mobility aid in general is like not a good thing, because I'm using it in a particular way, right? And so I know how to use it, and I don't need other people to pull it or push it or whatever. What was the question again, Ingrid?
It was really just about what you would want the greater public to know, because we spoke about earlier a bit about people making assumptions of need, or assumptions of I know for myself, sometimes assumptions about how we should be using our mobility aids. And so I just wanted to give room for you three to speak on anything that you kind of like the general public to know, maybe a pet peeve that you wanted.
I think one thing, after having my walker for so long and like coming and like actually loving that I have a walker, I think a lot of people assume that my life is so bad, or like poor me because I'm using a walker, but I actually feel the opposite. I feel proud to have a walker. I feel proud to be different. I feel like having a disability and having a mobility aid actually makes me like special. And I've learned a lot of things from having a disability and a mobility aid. I've learned like patience and creativity and so many different other things. So what I would like the general public to know is like, don't have pity on me. I actually love my life and love having a walker. I wouldn't wish it another way.
Thank you so much for saying, Kate. I so love that you said that, because that is so very true, that people assume that we are unhappy with our disability, or we're looking to be fixed, or looking for a cure, and aren't just busy about, or more concerned with the lack of access that we have, and not trying to look to fix ourselves. We're trying to look to have the freedom to live our lives to the fullest that we can. Stevia, can you tell us about maybe also about how you feel and living with a disability, and um, do you feel happy, your joy, are you just more along those lines? Because there is that just that one-sided perspective out there, is that we're all suffering and sad and just dreaming of being able-bodied, that's what we spend our time doing.
Well, I've lived with disabilities, so to speak, all my life. The mobility aids are newer, but the underlying conditions that cause me to need them are not. I've had a number of years to be Stavia, and mobility aids don't change that. And I am happy with who I am, and in speaking about people and their assumptions, one thing that I've recognized is that ableism is a real thing here. Well, most people, as long as they can see that there's a disability, the automatic response is to want to be helpful. Um, and I appreciate your desire to be helpful, but ask, because I may not need your help, and not to be rude, but your help might be more damaging than helpful. So, move out of the way and be considerate rather than assuming that I need your help.
And that's such a tricky thing that we're forced to navigate and have to, juggle for able-bodied people, is their assumption that their kindness or their willingness or their desire to do something is always welcome, or always a good thing, or actually is always kind, because it's not. Sometimes it's insulting. And sometimes, like you said, it's debilitating. It's not helpful. It actually works the opposite way. And we are forced to not only have to handle our own emotions, but have to handle other people's emotions also, which can be frustrating. Does anybody want to maybe speak on that regard?
Yeah, I've had a lot of experiences of having to handle other people's uncomfortability. They see like a young person with a disability, and they all automatically assume, like, quote unquote, what's wrong with me? Because other than using a walker, like, I like, my body looks able-bodied, I guess. And so they always wonder what's wrong with me, what happened to me, all of these things. And this could be like a stranger that I am seeing down on the street, or like someone I'm sharing an elevator with. And so I'm trying to navigate dealing with their feeling uncomfortable, and I'm trying to change their mind. Like, there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
Like, it's your perception that there's something wrong if I'm using a mobility aid, but really, like, there's nothing wrong with me. Like, what are you actually trying to ask, right? Like, they're trying to ask some pretty invasive questions about my medical history.
Yeah.
Rather than, and it's just for their own like curiosity or nosiness or whatever, right? Rather than like them. So it's back to like what Stevie was saying, like people trying to be quote unquote helpful because they want to like know how to help you or whatever, but really they're just being nosy and trying to justify like their own bad behavior.
Mm-hmm. Adam, did you have anything to say on that aspect of sometimes unsolicited help or unwanted pity that we sometimes get from?
Well, the only thing that can sometimes make me a little road ragey, but sometimes it is my fault too. But when the people like make comments about my reckless driving when I'm not being reckless, on my bad days, it can give me a little bit of sidewalk rage. But like, you know, I am sometimes, you know, gonna say, I think sometimes the problem is though that if you got a bumpier sidewalk and stuff, you sometimes it's sort of like a bumpier road. Sometimes you do go slower, but sometimes you actually want to go faster, so you're not hitting every individual bump. So you're sort of going fast enough that you're not feeling every individual crack.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of these situations where it's sometimes we I don't want to say it's hard to control, but sometimes I think people think that that we're just that when we're zipping down the street that we don't care, and you know we do care. We don't want to injure anybody, but it's like but don't assume that you guys can just make any action. Or the other thing I do really dislike is when when I am going down the street and there's somebody with an iPod or other music device in their ears and they're not hearing me say excuse me, so I quickly pass them and then I catch their eye and then they yell at me for zipping by.
Mm.
It's like, you know, sure, like lately with this social distancing, I'm a lot more careful when I do stuff like that. But if you're just slowly walking down the street, jamming to your tunes, reading your text,
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. But if I'm trying to get somewhere, I'm sorry. I can't always yell over your tunes, and there's not always another bystander that will signal to you to let you know that I want to get past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I I used a power wheelchair for a few months when I had an accident one time, and I know that for me at least, being a new driver, I found the driving a wheelchair really challenging. It might be because of the environment and how the road is bumpy and doorways aren't big enough and things like that. But I also just want to say, like, from my experience, like, it is hard, and like you have to like learn how to maneuver it, and it's like way in my mind, having also driven a car in the past, it's like way harder than driving a car.
Mm-hmm. It was interesting listening to you both speak. That reminded me of times when I was accused of tripping people. Not that they weren't watching where they were going. Stevie, I wonder, I know you do use crutches that, perhaps definitely don't stick out the way that, I use my cane, but have you ever come across a situation where people either weren't watching where they're going and maybe tripped over your device, or maybe accused you of not being
Several
fair in your
times.
use?
Several times. See, I'm I'm 5'9" and have a bit of a gait, so my crutches go out ahead of me, and then my body follows. And there are people who will see me coming, and I am moving. As I said earlier, these things let me go a lot faster, right? I'm moving, and there's a clear path ahead of me, so I'm trying to get where I'm going, and then somebody will step out into the way when I've pushed the crutches forward to get forward, and either hit them, which causes me to trip, and then I am upset, or they trip and then I laugh because, well, you should have been paying attention. I mean, it sounds so bad, I guess, to laugh at it, but it feels like people sometimes are just so inconsiderate. Like, you see me coming, you recognize that I'm using a mobility device, but you still think, okay, I can make it across a lot faster before he
Yeah.
gets there, you know? And then you're not expecting that I'm gonna be moving as quickly as I am, and then you're upset when you cross my path and then you trip.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of difficulty feeling sorry for you at that point, because you could have caused me to fall, you know, which is the whole reason I'm on these crutches, so that I don't fall. I'm old,
Exactly.
I can't take a fall.
Exactly. I'd like to just change gears just a little bit, as because we're coming up on time, and I just want to. I read something recently with someone with um, their wheelchair, and they saw their chair as just being really fashionable, and was just like really so in love with their chair. And I know some people who decorate their canes, their white canes, and so I was just wondering, with you guys, do you see your mobility device as being fashionable, as being sleek in its design? And if so, I'd love to hear about it, or if you put anything on it to decorate it, or and if you don't, or if you have, if not, if you would have any suggestions for designers on how they could improve on the particular design of the mobility device you use.
I would love to talk about this.
All right, go ahead.
So my walker is bright red. And a few years ago, when I had to change my glasses color, I changed my glasses to be bright red too. So now I'm always matching myself. And my two different mobility devices, my glasses, which are hardly considered a mobility device anymore, and my walker are always matching. And I always get compliments on my glasses. Oh, your glasses are red, they're so cool. But like, I never get compliments on my walker. But I always try to bring it up when people say, oh, your glasses are red, they're so cool. I'm like, oh, I know, I got them to be red so that they can match my walker. And it feels like no matter what I wear and what outfits I put on, like I'm always fashionable because my walker and my glasses are always matching.
Nice. I love that.
So that's like a little way that I play around with mobility devices.
Yeah. Stevie or Adam?
I used to put more stickers and individualize my chair a bit more than I do than I do now. I do sort of wish there were a little bit more design up in wheelchairs, but when I pick a chair, it's not because of the design. It's usually I like a chair that's got a better quality motor that can go for that can give me better long lasting endurance.
But if you could have all that and sleek, something, would you want like a really cool sleek design too?
Uh,
And also, or that's just like who cares?
I knowing me, I'd probably want like a more retro classic design. Um, I like my Ingrid, if we ever get together, I'll let you feel my eyeglasses because I got the eyeglasses that are more shaped like the original eyeglasses. They actually were designing basically back in the 1890s and stuff,
Oh,
rather than because I love those perfectly rounded shapes, and they actually work on me. They exaggerate the fact that I'm wearing glasses, but it actually works for me rather than having those glasses that people barely see. But I just love the retro artsy look of the thicker rims.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome. What about you, Stevia?
I've never even thought about it.
Never thought about dressing up those crutches? Nope.
Oh, never thought about it. So I think maybe if anything, I would change the color. I don't know, but that's probably it.
That's about it. Hey, good enough. Yeah. Yeah, I love that question. Um, I know with me, I've gotten some compliments on my glasses. I don't pick them since I can't see them, but I'm always very thankful for my optometrist wife who always does that. And I get a lot of compliments on how fashionable my glasses look. So, yeah, that's a good one. I'd like to maybe now just turn to talking about how, if at all, your mobility device helped you in navigating social connections. And if it did with that, like sometimes for some people before they're connected up with their mobility device, they maybe were limited in their movement or limited in their ability to get out and socialize. And I'm just wondering if you found that your mobility device, besides being efficient in general, really helped to navigate the social aspect of your life.
I feel like my mobility device, it automatically people automatically can see I'm disabled, and so I find it easier to build disability community because we can visually see each other. And I love that. I also know that I've been able to connect a lot with my neighbors in my building because they all recognize me, whereas I live in a really tall building, and so I might not be recognized. if I didn't have a mobility device. And because of that, I actually have like a better relationship with all my neighbors. And that's like really, really amazing. And also like when I'm queer and when I'm out in queer community, lots of other disabled people, as a disabled person, like I gravitate toward other disabled people because they have a similar experience to me. And so when I'm out in queer community, it's nice to like kind of quote unquote find my people, because I have that device.
I found it really interesting in this aspect how you brought up how your mobility device kind of makes you stand out, but in a good way. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Either Adam or Stevia?
I'm gonna let Stevia go because we've only got a minute left before our break.
Okay. Yeah, for me, it because it's less painful to move around. I'm not really a very social person, but I found myself saying yes a lot more to going out and hanging out and stuff because I was able to move around with less pain. So yeah.
Well, I'm going to just take the last few seconds here then to say thank you to all three of you, Kate, Stevia, Adam, for sharing your perspectives and your stories on your mobility devices, on how they have enhanced your life, their effectiveness, and just the ways that they are part of you, and how the greater society can also learn to have more respect for our devices and us in general. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I think you guys are awesome. That went really well.
Now I'm gonna go to the washroom.
Hi, Gabe. Quick question for you. Hi, Gabe. Can you hear me?
Hello, welcome back. Dad. She's not there. Not ready, yet, are we? I'm not ready. Hello?
Not ready yet.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Stavia, please turn on your video. No, Stavia. Okay.
Stevia, can you put on your video again?
Your video.
Oh, okay. We have to give him another minute.
Okay. Yeah, damn. This message. Hi.
There you go.
Sorry.
I'm all right, thanks. Yeah, good. How are you?
Okay, I think we're ready to go, Don.
What's that? Wait for Game to come back. Oh, give him another minute. Good to go. Oh, okay. And we're live right now.
Yeah, I think you can start introducing yourself.
I press record, right?
Yes.
I'm gonna press record right now. Okay. Hi, good afternoon. We're back on Breaking Expectations. I'm Donald Berry, and I'm here with my panel. Let's say, first of all, that I'm hosting this panel, and I'm a person with a disability, and also a published journalist and writer, and it's great to be on the panel today, and I'll let everyone introduce themselves first.
Who should we start with?
You?
Okay, I'll start. I'm Kate Welsh. I'm a disability activist and artist in Toronto, Ontario. And I make art around disability. And I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
And I'm Bob Benson. I'm a student and a disability advocate. You may hear a little bit of noise as I'm speaking, what I call Darth Vader noises. I'm also on a ventilator, so you may hear the ventilator helping me to breathe.
I'm Stavia. I work in social services and as a PSW. Uh, yeah, and I'm happy to be here.
All right. All right. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Okay. Question I have for the panel today is, when did you start to see that there were benefits or moments of joy due to having a disability?
Would you like me to fire off,
anyway,
Don?
Paul, yes.
Okay, right. Well, my background is I was diagnosed with MS in 1976. And for a long time, I was not identifying strongly as a person with a disability. I could pass. So I chose to pass as able-bodied. And it was only when my level of disability was increasing, I started to recognize the benefits of being a person with disability and what it gave me when I recognized the strength and the identity that gave me. So I started to show increasing symptoms. People recognized me as a person with disability, and I started to connect with others in a deeper way. So I went from attempting to live a very independent life, which was becoming increasingly difficult, to living an interdependent life where I was reliant on services from others, but I was also able to assist others in certain ways. And that gave me a much richer life. So through interdependence, I found that I could leverage my disability and become, I would say, a more complete human being. And that is my source of joy, is identifying as a person with a disability and recognizing that we're all here for each other. And that change of lifestyle is a big improvement for me and gives me joy.
All right. Okay. Chance? How about you?
Yeah, so I agree with you, Paul. Like, I've found a lot of joy in being interdependent and relying on other people and other people relying on me. I feel like having a disability has made me trust people more, because I have to trust people more, and by trusting people, I have stronger relationships with people, and that brings a lot of joy. I feel like before I was identifying with my disability, I was very isolated and alone. And after I started identifying with disability, I found community, and I found love, and I found laughter, and I found all of the good things that bring joy to my life. And I like, there's a lot of, I think it's like flipping, like for me, being disabled is joyful. And I know that for able-bodied people, it seems like the opposite, like that, that being disabled has misery or whatever. But I feel like really happy now that I've owned my disability and have been a disability activist and all of the different things, and have made art around disability. It's like my disability has like given me meaning and joy in life. Yeah.
All right. Stavia?
For me, really starting to recognize that chronic pain was in fact a disability, because I think I was in denial about it for a while. Um, I recognize my limited vision as a disability. I recognize being on the autism spectrum as being perceived as a disability. Um, but I prefer the word inabilities there. But chronic pain, I just saw it as something I had to push through. And I think that once I started to be around, I started to work with a group of disabled folks, Cyborg Circus, where everybody was just happily doing what they wanted to do. You know, there was dance and art and all this stuff. And I realized that accepting the fact that I had limited abilities didn't mean that I had to be limited. So accepting it and it opened me to being able to find things to help with the pain. And I found joy then in being able to go about a daily life, not having to be stopped by pain constantly, like being better able to manage it. And I found a lot of joy in being able to do that, getting out more, interacting more, not having to be cranky because I was in too much pain to even move. So yeah.
Right. Well, thank you for that. I'm just out of curiosity. I've had experience with pain myself, with more bone pain. If I say had a fracture, hasn't happened in a while, and well, I'm wondering how are you able to navigate through the pain to maintain a sense of joy. Right? I'll explain that I find that, or I did find when I would be injured, that I would find activities even when I was limited or say in bed, for example, I'd be able to find things to keep me happy and active in some way, even through limitations. But how about you? You find that? Did you have similar experiences?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole lot easier to get involved more now. That is easier to manage the pain of just moving. Yeah.
I kind of agree with both of you. I'm just thinking about like times where I've like needed to be in bed or at home or whatever. And it's interesting. I feel like because I have, because my disability may not allow me to like physically move around as much, I found like other ways to keep myself occupied, like art and podcasts and other things. And it's interesting. I'm just thinking about this like weird time that we're in with COVID, and people are saying like, oh, they're so bored at home and things like that. And because I've always had to figure out ways to not be bored because of my disability, I feel like I never get bored. And that's like a part of joy for me, is like I never get bored. And because I have things that I know how to do where I'm not having to leave the house or move my body. Yeah.
Yes, I'd like to pick up on that one, Kate, because that absolutely ties in with my experience. The days are very full. And I think you're right in that we have, as it were, insurance against boredom, because we've spent our time developing ways to be engaged with life, despite having to overcome certain challenges. So we're we're flexible. We're able to react to things, and we can lead very full, very rewarding lives when others might see us as being very limited, and our lives, as you mentioned before, as being rather miserable. By contrast, life is rich and just keeps getting better. There's a thing they talk about, the disability paradox, that even as you face increasing levels of disability, your quality of life very often goes up. So for instance, as late stage MS, I've lost a great deal of movement, so I am technically quadriplegic. But this has been one of the best periods of my life in terms of how much I'm capable of doing, and also the joy I take in being able to do this work. And I wonder to what extent we've all experienced that. You've already described it a little bit. Perhaps you want to talk a little more on that.
Well, I like what you said, Paul. Insurance against boredom. I'm always taking out insurance against boredom. I fight through it a lot, and there are moments where, obviously we all do get bored sometimes. The first two, well, you're mentioning COVID, well, first 2 weeks it took me a while to adjust, because I felt a jarring effect. One thing conversation recently with David Army, he told me, and this stood out, that we're very good problem solvers. I don't know if you agree. You find out that as people with disabilities, we're able to find ways out of situations that are either bad or just uncomfortable. Okay, yeah, thanks, Kate. I relate to that. Any thoughts on that? Additional thoughts?
Well, I actually interviewed a young lady called Mayan Ziv.
Yeah,
And
I know her.
yeah, she's amazing, and she made that same point, Don. She said that in her experience, persons with disabilities are great problem solvers because things come up and we have to find ways around them. For instance, when I lost the ability to move my hands significantly, I couldn't operate a keyboard. So here I am today, I'm operating my computer hands-free. You can see a little dot on my glasses. I'm actually moving the mouse pointer around based on head movement. So as I move my head left and right, up and down, a little sensor is bouncing off that little reflector so that I've got mouse movement. So obviously I've had a lot of help in solving these technical issues, but the issue is resolved and I'm able to be productive. Here at my wheelchair with my desk in front of me, even in the hospital room where I'm a long-term patient, I'm having one of the most productive periods of my life.
Nice.
And I take a lot of joy in that.
Yeah, like sometimes when I think of problem solving, one thing that I say is that people with disabilities were inherently more creative, because we have to be so creative with our lives and how to do different things, be it like sustain ourselves, like cook or whatever, right? Or move the mouse. And so I personally think that, like, as people with disabilities, we're more creative than other people in the world, because we have to be more creative. And I found that my disability actually makes me have that different like set of brain skills to be more creative with like art supplies and those type of things, just as I'm more creative with how my kitchen is set up and things like that.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, I can relate to all what you just said. And it feels good. It's made me feel good. And I've had my case. I've had a disability my entire life, and that's the only life I've known. And it's been good being able to have that gift, or what we call it, a gift, or skill. Yeah. And Stevia, would you like to add anything?
No, not right now.
The other thing that I might put forward for everybody's thoughts on is, for me, increasing disability brought into focus what I'm here to do. This may not be a perfect quote, but this is Mark Twain. He said there are, two important days in your life. The day you're born and the day you discover why. Now, I feel that I've discovered why I was born through disability. I'm here to speak because I have a voice and I can be a presence. I'm here to speak about the disability experience and how it is informing my life and others who haven't had, as Gabe would say, the privilege of experiencing disability may not have that richness of experience. They may go through life not really knowing what they're here to do. And through my experiences, I've discovered, and I'm very clear, that I've got a lot of years ahead of me to speak up about the disability experience and that interdependency, that relying on community, being a participant at every level. And for me, that is a tremendous gift that I've gained through disability.
I agree with that, Paul. I feel like disability has given me kind of like a life path. And I'm grateful for disability because it's taught me so many things, and it's taught me like what is really important in life is like friends and family and chosen family and community and like equal rights and equity and that kind of thing, right? Is like, I feel like without disability, I wouldn't be as good of a person, maybe. Like I wouldn't be as in touch with things if I didn't have a disability.
Definitely feel like it
Yeah.
made me more patient and compassionate, Definitely.
Showing empathy for others.
Yes.
Who are, say, in similar situation. People who are labeled vulnerable, right? Show empathy for them as well.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a better person, and I'm better at interacting with other people, and I'm better at a job, and I'm better at caretaking my dog and all of the things because I have a disability and I know what it's like to need to be taken care of, and I know what it's like to have expectations for myself and to just treat other people as people rather than like yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'll just add that blending into communities has always been a goal for me, even when I didn't think of it as a goal necessarily. It evolved over time. And I find now as an adult that I'm more tuned into this, well, say, disability community and the mainstream community I've always had an eye on as well. I wanting to blend the communities, make them one.
Yes, the other aspect of community I've discovered is that I've met a variety of people that I might not have expected to meet. So, through being connected with the disability community, I've shared somewhat in other people's experiences in a way that is unlikely if I'd had no disability, or if I hadn't had an increasing level of disability. That's introduced me to a community that I might otherwise have completely missed. And that's something that has definitely enriched my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like I would be stuck in like a little bubble if I didn't have interactions where I could meet other disabled folks and have that immediate connection, because like it's not very often in our lives that we like interact with people super different than us, right? And so it's nice. I feel like disability, because there is so much difference in disability, it gives me a chance to have more rich and meaningful conversations, because I am connected to people who I wouldn't normally or otherwise be connected to.
Yeah, community has offered me a chance to really get to know more about my own disability. I'm coming from a country where, yes, there's a disabled community, but it's not as, I guess, vibrant as the ones here. So it's like a very big change of pace for me, and like feeling accepted into a community that has people who are, you know, understanding exactly what you're going through. That has been definitely a big help for me. Yeah.
And also brings joy, right? Like
Yeah.
it's wonderful to have other people around us.
Well, yeah. When I say big help, I mean it definitely helped me to like feel more comfortable, live in more of a joyous space.
Mm-hmm.
Being, yeah.
Yeah, well, being able to hear all your stories and perspectives brought me joy as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, one aspect I didn't expect to come across is I've recently been taking courses through the program in disability studies at Ryerson University. And I've been exposed to stories of people diagnosed with mental illness, and whether those diagnoses are valid or in fact just another aspect of ableism is another discussion. But I was amazed at how much of a different insight I got based on, you know, doing that study, being exposed to stories of people diagnosed with mental health issues, because it added a whole new area to my area of thinking that I hadn't previously considered. And through being involved in a much broader group, there's this thing they talk about same like me. If we're not pushed, we will just tend to associate with a very narrow group of people that we identify as being just like me. But through disability, I've been exposed to such a broad range of different abilities, um, the, the experience of difference that otherwise I would have been completely blind to. That again is a source of joy, just seeing the variations in ways of perceiving what is a good life.
That's great, and I remember when the disability studies program started, and I believe it was the first one in Canada, right? Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
20 years ago, I remember when it was starting up, and I was in the process of graduating from the journalism program at Ryerson. It's good to see that the program is still still there. A lot of graduates in 20 years, and met some of them, and it's very important program to have. To preserve our histories and our stories, and to educate and enlighten others. All right. Well, any final words you'd like to pass on? What takeaways would you give people?
I would, just to pick up on what you're saying there, Don. Yes, I would say that some of the joy is just sharing with others that life can be so much more, so much richer when you're involved with community and with such a wide range of community that you can really celebrate the diversity of life that's out there. And rather than being in this narrow silo where you just associate with others having the same experience. There's so much more to life. And that's a discovery that's given me great joy, is discovering the breadth of life. So that's my takeaway. That's what I exist to do now, is to share that message that life is so wide in terms of different experiences. And the more we share those experiences, the richer it is for all of us.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you for everybody. Thank you for this discussion. It's going to help a lot of people, and I hope we'll get to share it with others soon.
Yeah, thanks, Don.
Okay, thanks. I'd like to thank my pals, Paul, Kate, and Stevia. I'm Donald, and you've been listening to Breaking Expectations. Hey, welcome back.
Oh, am I supposed to do something now? Oh. Can anybody see me?
Hi.
Hey,
Hi, Donald. Hi, Adam.
Okay, if everybody's there, should we get right into the final portion of the podcast?
I don't see myself, Paul. I see you? Should I be seeing me? Because I thought.
yeah, we're seeing you,
Oh,
but
you
because
are.
there's so many of us,
Oh, okay.
screen just slid over, but we're seeing you clearly, Ingrid.
Okay.
Okay, should we go ahead with that final question to bring everything together?
Sounds good.
Okay, so this is for everyone in the group. And the last question is, how have your experiences out in the world with your mobility aids helped in imagining and or helping you to create a world without ableism? Who'd like to take that on?
I can go. It's Kate here. I think for me, it's weird, but I feel like just like by existing and doing the things that I do in my life, I'm able to have conversations with able-bodied people, and having them like get to know me one-on-one actually like helps reduce ableism.
I like that you brought that up, Kate, how just living our lives is helping to do that, because I find also when I'm out and using my white cane, like especially children, because they're so curious, right? And they'll come up and they'll want to know, why do I have it? And how does it help me? And they want me to demonstrate, and sometimes they want to try it. And it's such a wonderful change than from how it used to be, where parents would be like, oh no, and don't ask that, and don't say that, and don't touch it. Now, sometimes I even have parents saying, oh, my child was wondering, would you mind? And I just love that. I think that's such a paradigm shift that just needs to increase, where people realize that the more that we communicate and talk, and the more that we get to know each other and understand each other, the better um, place and world that we build.
Yes, thanks for that, Ingrid. I wonder, Adam, do you want to jump in?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's worth doing. The question is, how have your experiences out in the world with your mobility aids helped you in imagining and or creating a world without ableism?
Well, it's hard because I think we're always gonna have ableism. But the one thing I've done is, if you watched any of my videos on my YouTube channel, I tried to actually use video to show what it is actually like driving around in a wheelchair, and also taking photos and doing artistic, creative ways to actually make people think about the discussion. Talking about disability and stuff, unless it's done in a creative way, can sometimes be like boring and just sort of, just it sort of gets filtered out in the brain as, you know, like something that can't be done, like can't be changed enough. But when you actually use people's other senses that wouldn't necessarily be looking at disability, and you actually have them pick up and investigate, then they actually see disability in a different light. I remember once when I was able to on the CBC, we were doing a Jane walk and stuff, and I knew that most of the listeners would not come to the James walk, and I challenged them as they were traveling around the city to just look and see how many shops there were with stairs that would be inaccessible to people with a disability. And because I had shared my Twitter username with the people at this CBC, I was able to come home and realize that there was a whole thread of people that wrote on Twitter. And one of my favorites was, I was walking home through Little Italy, which is notoriously inaccessible. And this lady counted 20 shops with steps. And, you know, it just, and, you know, that was just one of several people that actually chimed in on the conversation. And probably for a few minutes, I actually had, even if I had like 10% of the listeners that were listening to CBC Here and Now that afternoon, if I had them thinking about disability for even a few seconds, that was a plus.
And that's it exactly, Adam. I think that the more that we bring up disability issues in our everyday lives, in our conversations, in whatever spaces that we're occupying, if we bring attention to the challenges that persons with disability face, or if you're having a conversation about something at work and there's an opportunity to bring up an issue of inequity or point it out, that really serves our whole community well, because unfortunately, a lot of times we don't even come to mind. And a lot of tables and spaces that I've sat at, when I bring things up, everyone is like, oh yeah, because that's a real unfortunate reality that sometimes we don't even come to mind. So I think the more that we can make our presence felt in our everyday lives, in our conversations, in whatever spaces that we occupy, that will help to push disability issues forward and to help to make us more present in people's minds.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's great, Ingrid. And carry on from your point, Adam. I was just imagining you zipping along in your wheelchair. Luke Anderson, who founded the Stopgap Foundation, they provide ramps free to businesses who have a single step at the door to make them accessible. Or in some cases, where they have two steps, they'll even build a composite ramp.
Yeah.
And he recorded a video, The Adventures of Ramp Man.
Yes, yeah.
And so I thought that was hilarious. And he was wearing a superhero cape, which I thought was, again, a splendid way of reconfiguring disability into a superpower.
But the one thing with Stopgap, and I will just say this quickly, is there is still some cultural bias from getting around. See, me and Luke are friends, right? Mm-hmm. And so I helped him canvas my old neighborhood. And 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 it was a beautiful, nice day, a bit warmer than this, you know, pre-social distancing. We were able to hang out and have a conversation, and so we had just canvassed a restaurant and stuff. Um, and asked them, and they were like, "Oh, they were like, well, you're gonna have to speak to the manager, and the manager's not here right now. He might be back in a while." And then we were just chit chatting. About 20 minutes later, the lady comes out and goes, "Oh, I hope you guys aren't holding vigil out here till the manager comes." And Luke just goes,
Yes.
"Adam, I hope that wasn't a restaurant you wanted to ever eat at, because I don't think they're ever gonna sign up for a ramp." And it's stuff like that just yeah.
But I think, Adam, like, I think though, when people have disabled people in their lives, they're more willing to
Yeah.
to be like working against ableism because there is
Definitely.
a personal connection. So I think as people with disabilities, part of our like duty or whatever to our community is when we're in spaces, like be it at work or in social spaces or whatever, is to just like own our disability and talk about it.
Yeah.
And talk about what it's like, not necessarily talk about our bodies or anything like that, but just talk about like what it's like navigating the world in a wheelchair or with a walker or whatever. And the more that we do that, the more that we can get people around us who are allies. Like, I think that all my able-bodied friends have learned to be allies because of the way that I talk about things.
Yeah.
I ask them, like, if they are inviting me to some place, I ask over and over, what's the stair situation like? Where's the bathroom? All those things. And eventually, years later now, my friends just automatically say those things without even being prompted. And same with my family, right? Is like, when you have someone with a disability in your life who's open and willing to talk about it, I think that that interpersonal experience really helps people kind of like understand and really helps them know how to interact. Because a lot of people are not bad intentioned at all. It's just that we all grew up in a world where ableism exists. It's not necessarily that people are bad intentioned. They just don't know better.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Don.
Oh, okay. Well, ableism, unfortunately, is still embedded in a lot of places, and well, some you're saying it's unintentional. Sometimes I'm sure there are places where it might be intentional, but people are not willing to bend or change and accommodate. And you find that some places.
I think people who are intentionally not accommodating have the excuse of money or time or whatever. And it's because it goes back to like us living in this society where in capitalism, where like people can't make accommodations unless they have things like money and time and things like that. It's often not that people don't want to make the accommodation. It's that if they say, oh, I can't make an accommodation, it's that they are stuck in this position in society that has money and resources and the built environment and ASL interpretation that's not properly funded and things like that. So it's almost like when you get behind like the initial, oh, we can't accommodate you, and understand the whys about it, it comes down to like people don't have the resources and the government doesn't have the will, or like organizations don't have the will. They'd rather put in a fancy other thing and not see that actually accommodations are necessary for the world.
Yeah, I've certainly seen plenty of cases where that was very true, Kate. I'm thinking of there's a typical mid to high rise apartment building where there's a gentleman who uses a four-wheeled scooter, and the back door has level entrance from the parking lot. Then you open the back door and there's a step down into the building. It's about a 7-inch step. And then there's a long hallway. So it would be easy to raise the whole hallway over about 20 feet so that there's no more step. But the management have no interest in doing that. And very small cost to put in an automatic door opener. So this one gentleman has created his own wooden ramp. He wedges the door open, locks it in place with a metal bar while he gets himself in and out of his four-wheel scooter. And he solved the problem for one person, but the management for less than $5,000 could solve it for all time for everybody. And then there was the day he came out, when he's out and about, he puts the ramp somewhere out of sight. And he came back and somebody had taken the little wooden ramp. And he was absolutely stuck. By comparison, when handled by the management of the building, the problem would have been eliminated utterly and completely for everyone. No issues.
And that brings up for me when Kate was talking about how when you have a person with a disability in your life that people care, and which is true, but that's the problem for me, is that when people only care when it affects them, it's just not good enough. It just isn't good enough, and we have to press the envelope. And it's unfortunate that too many people will not do the right thing until they're made to. And that's the example that Paul just gave with this building, where it wouldn't even be detrimental to them cost-wise to fix this problem, and yet they have absolutely no interest in doing so. And that's one of the problems that we have in society, where people have this "why should I care" attitude, where they have to be convinced that they should care about people that they don't know, or people that are not involved in their lives, because I find that attitude to be far too prevalent. And for those of us who can and are willing to speak, that's where I find that we need to share our voices and to share our narratives, and to unfortunately convince people that they need to care about others, whether or not it personally affects them. But as a society, we are all served better when we care about one another.
Yes, very well said, Ingrid. And I wonder whether our best hope is educating the kids.
Always.
The kids first.
Always, because when it's not a big issue, or not something extraordinary for them to be around persons who are different from them for whatever reason, whether it's disability, whether it's race, whether it's religion, whether it's anything, then as they grow up, it's also a no-brainer for them. They won't be thinking, oh, well, how could that person do this that we face when we try to go for jobs? They'll be like, of course it's not a problem. because they're accustomed to being around a variety of people and seeing that people do things differently, and that you just have to be more creative and think out of the box and be more solutions oriented.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul, I want to give my answer to your question. I didn't answer it directly. I wanted to say my experiences in the world of my power chair, in my case, how has it helped me creating a world without ableism? Well, I've helped to, I haven't been able to eliminate ableism. However, I believe that I played a part and still play a part in reducing it, making it less dominant, and like just being present and letting people. I want to bring my character out before the wheelchair, even though the wheelchair is obviously right there and can't, it's visible. I always make a point to demonstrate my own character and personality first, and then make people make them feel less intimidated by the presence of my chair.
Right. Yeah. So they see you rather than seeing the mobility aid.
That's right.
Now, in terms of...
I think there's also power, though, to, like, I feel like I want people to know, I want people to see me as a person, but I think I also want people to see my disability, because I feel like it's such an integral part of myself that I don't want to erase it.
Can't erase that.
Yeah. So for me, I feel like, yes, I want to show myself and be treated equitably, but I also want to let people know, like, hey, I am disabled. Like, let's have a conversation about that. But I agree, Ingrid. It like, even if it starts with people only caring, like, because they know you, it's not enough. Like, this is why there needs to be things like enforceable legislation for making things accessible and things like that.
Now here, I'll tell you, I want to get back to what you're saying about educating children and youngest people, and I've had experiences where a kid would come up to me and politely look and ask questions about the fact that I'm in a power chair and use one. And majority of the experiences I've had, they're in awe and they're fascinated by my appearance in a chair, and they ask questions and want to know more, and I tell them, and even sometimes when it might feel awkward, a question like the fact that I'm not walking, and I want to know how I get around, or how I feel about it, and I say having this chair has helped me a lot, and they're my legs, and I like, I've been okay with it, and it's another way of getting around.
Yeah, I agree, Donald. I find that, like, when kids ask questions, it's from a place of just like they're asking questions about how the world works and things like that. They're asking from like a very pure place and a good intention place, and the problem comes when the parents are the ones saying like, oh no, don't ask those questions, because
Yeah.
then the kids learn that they're not okay to, it's not okay to be curious. I have one of my nephews, one time he was asking me about my walker, and he was like, oh, why do you use that? And I said, oh, it helps me walk. And then he said, oh, but you have feet. And I was like, yeah, I have feet too. And then he was like, okay. And he just accepted it, right? Like he didn't need to know all the other questions.
Mm.
He was just like happy. He believed me and was happy with my answer.
That's it exactly. I get kids asking me that too about my vision and why. Why do you have that stick and how does it help you see? Like they just think, what? What do you mean it helps you see or helps you get around? So the curiosity is amazing. And like you said, when they ask questions or interested, it's from a pure place. They really just want to know and to understand, and it's not a big deal.
Well, something else I'll throw out back with children again. I've had children come up and say, point out that I'm short stature physically, and I could be interpreted as being rude or demeaning. I usually don't find it that way. It's just them being curious and well, I find that when they ask or they say something like that, I'm thinking that they're connecting. All they want to do is connect, and beyond the level, literally or figuratively, they'll be able to communicate better and they'll be able to just have a better understanding of each other, and they'll be able to see that people, there's a variety out there.
Yeah, so kids see in a very pure way the diversity that's around them, and they're totally accepting. Actually, Adam, in the past, you've mentioned concerns that during COVID-19, our visibility is reduced.
Yeah.
And you have concerns that that may lead to, as it were, a resurgence of ableism.
It definitely will, and I think for a while there's gonna be some excuses about COVID and we should stay home, and I think we're probably always gonna be a little bit, I like to call it COVID shamed until there's immunization, until the levels are nonchalant. But I still think I'm always probably now. I'm gonna have to really earn the, when I go to shops, I might have to ask more for people to help me with my wallet, and it'll be a bigger deal. But I'm gonna give other options. I'm gonna say, fine. If it's a problem for you, then I'll be happy. Like particularly at smaller businesses, if they give me an email address, I'll be happy to send them an e-transfer.
Absolutely, or even maybe pay by phone. Yeah.
And do stuff like that. And stuff like right now, I'm ordering through a lot of those delivery apps, which is fine. But when I'm able to get out and about, some of those same restaurants, maybe I do want to do like a takeout pickup. I'd still like to use some other format for payment, but I don't want to have to always spend the money and tip a driver and stuff when I want to be the one driving and picking up my own meals.
Yes, I agree. I agree, Adam.
Paul,
Yes.
if it's okay, I would like to expound on a point that you brought up earlier, which was really interesting to me. It's the first time I've heard the term, but I totally understand it, the disability paradox,
Yes.
where you spoke about how the more that you lose ability in one way, though, but your quality of life is increasing, or perhaps that you're finding ability in other ways, which is something that I feel that I've experienced with the disorder that I have, RP, which is a very gradual and slow loss of vision, which has been very difficult in some ways. But on the other hand, I also find a real matching or equal level of personal development at the same time. And like you spoke about how the quality of your life increases, or even in your appreciation of things. I find that I'm not stressed by certain things that I might have been before when my vision was better, because it's just not, it's a non existent or problem for me anymore. And I don't worry about how people look. I don't necessarily always worry about how I look, or stress about certain things that I did before, the attention to more when I had a greater scope of vision. And like Kate was also talking about how for her also, she found that her disability built her character. And I find that with myself too, that you know, that I have more appreciation of people, that I see beyond certain things that, you know, a lot of, or the general public tend to focus on. And I'm better able to narrow into the soul of the person and to focus on that and not objectify them as to how they look or how they do things. And yeah, so I find joy in my disability, and I find there's a lot of great things. I'm not sitting around necessarily worrying about certain things that I probably would have if I had the full scope of my vision. And I'm not trying to downplay the difficulties, but I think we never get to highlight the great things that we have within having a disability.
Okay, I think that's a wonderful place to wind up. I think we've all recognized that we are privileged, we are lucky in having these variety of experiences to talk around and share with others. It is time for us to wind up the show here. I think Gabe, our producer, is just about to close down the session with a closeout screen. So I think it's time to say thank you to everybody.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
And we've had a great discussion.
Yes.
Bye.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, and bye for now. And hopefully we'll see people for the next podcast.
Great.
Alrighty, this is the producer of the Breaking Expectations podcast, Gabriel Thibault, and we want to thank you all for joining us here at the Breaking Expectations podcast for our first episode. The Breaking Expectation podcast was built in the DNEX Media Project in partnership with the Center for Independent Living, and is funded by the Ontario Trillium Foundation. Thank you very much, and I hope that you all enjoyed our discussion.